Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We have a former Navajo Ranger with us, Jonathan Dover. Maybe you've heard of him. And he's going to share some very interesting and bizarre, terrifying testimonies of unexplained cases on the reservation. For example, what it's like to investigate Skinwalker activity. Oh, yeah, he says they're real, very real. Firsthand reports of Bigfoot type creatures, cryptids, high-strangeness cases. Very interesting. So thank you for being here with me. I hope you're having a beautiful day today, beautiful evening or night, wherever you're at. I know this is a global platform. And just to let you know, we have a marathon. We're doing a marathon right now over on Rumble. So after this podcast, check us out over on Rumble. Just subscribe, totally free. And we're doing exclusives on Rumble now. We're doing exclusive content on Patreon. Have some amazing guests and information on Patreon. Also, if you're looking for EMF protection, shameless plug, go to tinfoilcap.co, tinfoilcap.co for EMF protection from head to toe. It even blocks 5G. We have technologies that block 5G. You could put your phone in a Faraday cage, get no signal, no tracking. Really cool technologies. And on sale, tinfoilcap.co. Check us out on Patreon. Check us out on Rumble. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay. Shameless plugs are over. Now let's get into this presentation. So Jonathan is very, very knowledgeable when it comes to the paranormal, and his experiences are fascinating. I think you'll really appreciate these. So grab your organic popcorn, your favorite organic beverage. Make sure your popcorn's non-GMO. All right, here we go. Thanks for being here. Hope you're having a beautiful evening. Bear Leak Project. How the heck are you? Wonderful opportunity today. We have Mr. Jonathan Dover with us, a veteran law enforcement officer, and he has worked with the city of Winslow, Arizona Police Department, the National Park Service, the Navajo Historic Preservation Department, and the Navajo Nation Rangers. Retired from active duty as a lieutenant in 2011, 31 years in law enforcement. Trained in criminal investigations and was an archaeological resource crimes investigator. John was also trained as an EMT in SWAT operations, hazardous materials, search and rescue, and was an instructor in police firearms training and high-angle technical rescue. When the apocalypse hits, the first person I'm calling is you, Mr. Dover. Mr. Dover has also worked closely with several producers and researchers involved with The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, Ancient Aliens, Paranormal Declassified, Unsolved Mysteries, Alien Highway, Sirius, and more. Often invited to be a guest speaker at events. There's an incredible event coming up in June. This is the event of events: paranormal, cryptids, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, monsters, spirits, the unexplained, X-Files type stuff. Contact in the Desert, June 2nd to June 4th. I'll be there. Jonathan will be there, and several dozen amazing top caliber guests. It's going to be at the Renaissance Resort in Indian Wells, California. Contact in the Desert. Hello. Super amazing. Well, how are you today, Jonathan? It's great to meet you. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm doing great, and it's great to be on your show.
Thank you. Checks in the mail, folks. I did pay him to say that. And I really hope you enjoy this. I've got some questions that I want to ask you that I feel are really important, and I really think the audience will as well. So first off, you were a ranger on the Navajo Nation for 30 years. Does that basically sum it up?
Well, I was a ranger for 27 years.
Okay.
For the years I was with the city of Winslow, Arizona Police Department, which is on a border town.
Oh, on a border town. So that was like extra intense then.
Yeah, it was. We had shootings and stabbings and assault with a deadly weapon, and just all kinds of stuff going on, railroaders and hotels and bars.
Jeez. And I'm sure a lot of that stuff the media doesn't pick up on, whereas if you're in a big city or something like that, or even a small town outside of a Navajo Nation or a reservation, probably there's going to be a lot more publicity about it. So I don't know if I'm right in saying this, but I would assume there's a lot of stuff that would go on out there that was, whether it was involved in paranormal type stuff or not, that probably didn't get picked up by the media, right?
That's right. There's a whole lot of stuff that doesn't get picked up. Back in the day when I was over there in the 80s and ever since, there was a lot of ridicule put on anybody that had a paranormal encounter. If you saw a UFO, you were considered, one of the nutcases that needed to be watched out, for and that kind of thing. In fact, when me and Stan got into this line of work, investigating paranormal cases, I was joking with him and I said, we wanted to go get material, books, things to read, to kind of update ourselves on what some of the latest stuff was. And I said, let's go down to Fort McDowell, where they were having the International UFO Congress. And I says, let's go see all the crazy people. And we went down there and we were visiting with some of the speakers, like Stanton Friedman and Mufon Booth and Dr. Lynn Katai, who did the Phoenix Lights. And they kept telling us, your stories, you need to be speakers. And next thing we know, we're invited to speak at MUFON. And from there, we got invited to speak at the International Conference.
Well, let me just jump in then and say, what was the most profound experience you had as law enforcement, working on the job, something that just made you realize that this world that most people try and teach us about or think we're in it's far more than what we see oftentimes, unless you do see it on the reservation or on the Navajo Nation?
Well, for me, it started out in 1984. I was just starting work with the Winslow Police Department. I was still living out on the reservations, so I was, and of course, I'm working, late afternoons into the evenings. So I'm on my way home. I was married then, so my ex is with me, and we're out in the middle of nowhere, between Winslow and Flagstaff and kind of north. And as we're driving, I see this huge cigar-shaped craft. I mean, it must have been about 300 yards long. Big, making a lot of noise. This heavy, this rum, 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 like that. But it would just go right through you, the vibrations. I stopped the car. I was maybe 200 yards away from this thing. And it was going over the railroad tracks. And we lived out there, so we hear the trains going by all the time, or we hear them stopped and idling. And it didn't sound like any diesel locomotive that we've ever heard. It had a single spotlight shining down from the front that was very collimated. It was almost like a pencil beam that just shined from the very tip, straight down. And it was following the tracks heading toward Flagstaff, toward the Cinder Hills, right around Miriam Crater in that area. So I get out. Of course, this is in the days when X-Files was big. So I looked at my watch and I said, okay, it's this time, make sure I'm not going to miss any time. Got out and I was watching this thing, and I got so intensely curious that if I was able to walk up to it, I would have knocked on the door and asked it for a ride. There was no fear, just this incredible sense of wonder as to what this thing was and how it was able to stay up in the air and go at around 15 miles an hour, just defying all gravity. And, for as big as it was. And I grew up around in Los Angeles and seeing the Goodyear blimps, and that was no blimp, believe me, not from the configuration and everything. So I'm watching this thing, and my wife at the time, she's just screaming at me, get in the car, get in the car. Finally it went off into the distance, didn't see it anymore. And I got back in the car and, drove back to the house. We had no electricity, no running water, but there's, so you can see the whole starscape up there. And this is right around midnight that this happened. So that was my first actual encounter that, really made me think. And, but I still, I wasn't going to talk about it to anybody, because if you do, you're crazy. So, you just keep that stuff to yourself. And that's how a lot of police officers are.
Now, you were actually in law enforcement at this time, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess it would have been right about that time you got involved, like you just got started, or was it? I'm doing the math in my head. You retired in 2011, and you did it for 31 years. So you were 1980. Is that when you got involved?
1980 is when I started.
Okay.
I initially did 4 years with the Navajo Nation Rangers. We were actually went through a 6-month police academy, which even today is kind of unheard of. And in that time, I was certified in Arizona, New Mexico, Utah. I had to be tribally certified, and I had to be federally certified. So police department, and I was already state certified, so I just slipped right in, and they put me on the job training. Didn't have to go back through the academy. So between 84 and 88, I was there at Winslow, finished as a police sergeant, and they built a brand new house. We were on the waiting list for 10 years. So they built a house for me out here in my hometown. And the city had a policy at the time that said you have to live in the city limits. You couldn't live 1 foot outside of the city limits. You had to be in the city limits. So I asked them if I could commute, and they said absolutely not. And I said, okay, I'm resigning, and I went back with the tribe and got back in with the Rangers. And in 91, I ended up with Historic Preservation Department and built my own law enforcement section and investigated archaeological artifact crimes for about 9 years until the grant ran out. And went back with the Rangers, and I've been there ever since.
That is really cool and very honorable. And so you had this experience in 84, and you said, now how far above you, like how high was it?
It was really low. It was probably only 100 yards off of the up in the sky. So it was really low.
Do you think it was government, or do you think it was possibly extraterrestrial?
At first I thought it was extraterrestrial. Since then, with all my experiences and knowledge, and we are now of the opinion that these things are multidimensional, and that they're popping into our dimension from a different dimension and then popping back out again. We don't know why. We think maybe there's a tourism outfit that's saying, you can have these tours of the most violent planet anywhere, but you're not allowed to have any contact with them. I say it tongue in cheek, but it says a lot about our how we operate here. But the reason we started thinking about it in these terms is we started having reports of people saying there's a pop sound, and suddenly there's a UFO above them. And then it faded out after a while, just disappeared. We had the same thing happen with Bigfoot cases, where we're tracking him for miles, and the tracks suddenly disappear in what we call, in tracking language, they say trackable ground, which is that if he had taken another step, he would have left a footprint. And there's no further footprints. You start casting for track, going in a spiral, try to, and you're looking for anything, even little pebbles pushed into the surface to see which way they went, and pick up the track again and keep tracking. And there's nothing. So we backtrack it the other direction. The tracks appear in trackable ground. So and then speaking with people in the Pacific Northwest, especially up around the Quinault Reservation in Washington State, several members there have told me that they've actually seen a Bigfoot and it just faded out as they were looking at it.
That would be the only explanation, right? I mean, they're the best at hide and seek of all time. They win the award for sure, because, my friends even joked around about it. He's like, dude, how come they never find Bigfoot poop? Bigfoot must poop interdimensionally. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's when he really needs his privacy. And I don't know, but it's just weird. Like you said, I'm glad to get an explanation like that, because I've never talked to somebody in law enforcement before that has described it that way. I did an interview with David Pilati several years ago, but we talked about the 411 stuff, and I don't think we got much into Bigfoot that I remembered. But so many people have seen them, and I've got friends that I trust, and it's like I've got a friend from Kansas that saw one in Kansas, and he said it looked like he was a kid, and he saw him for about a minute. He said he looked like a big linebacker, and I was like, oh, okay. But so, yeah, like, where do they go? I mean, if they're primitive, then how come we can't get them with LiDAR and radar and night vision and thermal? So I want to get your I want to hear more about the experiences you've had. This is incredible. Thank you.
Well, not only that, but we had haunting cases. We had a rather famous one where Stan was working on that, and he went to an office building that was having all kinds of activity taking place. Chairs rolling around on their own, laptop batteries flying across the room and smacking into the wall, ceramic vases exploding from the inside out. Just all kinds of, screams happening, in the building. And the alarm system would constantly go off, or phone calls would be made at night to the employees from the office when the place was supposed to be locked up and had a security system going. So he started seeing coins appear, what they call an apport, APPORT. And this is where something appears out of nothing and just ends up in our space. So these coins were all American coins. They were pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters. They would come flying across the room. They would just appear in the air and drop straight down. They'd bounce, they'd roll, they'd spin. And he called me and he says, what do I do? And I told him, okay, from an investigative standpoint, you need to map out where each coin dropped in the room, where it ended up. So you have to measure from two separate walls. And after that, you have to photograph it. Then you bag it and tag it, date and time. And he ended up having to do that 65 times, because that's how many coins showed up over 2 nights. Out of those 65 coins that dropped, all of them ended heads up, which is a statistical impossibility. So we actually still have those coins. They're in a little case, where you can actually look at them. 14 of them were wheat cent pennies. We're hoping one of them will be that 1943 copper, but you never know. So maybe they sent us some really good stuff. At one point, they were talking amongst the investigators. There were 4 of them that did this case, and one kid is joking around. He says, "Well, if they're going to throw coins, why doesn't it throw bills?" No longer just came out of his mouth, and a bill hit him in the cheek, and it was a dollar bill. And when they unrolled it, this dollar bill says the word die, D-I-E, like it was done in a Sharpie. And the E was in the shape of a pitchfork. So later on, they were told by a guy that does exorcisms to throw all the coins in the fire, build a fire, throw the coins in there, and throw the bill in there. So they threw all the coins in there and they fished them out afterwards and kept them. The bill they threw in, and they said it blew up like a giant firecracker. They said ash was everywhere. Coals went all over the place. You know, they burned them, burned their pants and everything else. But they said that as soon as the bill touched the fire, it just blew up. So we don't have that one anymore.
So what do you think was doing it?
Again, we think that this idea of dimensions, parallel dimensions, string theory posits that there could be a dozen different dimensions, or there could be an infinite number. My understanding is that they're not like right next to each other, like walls that are built, but that they're actually at different frequencies, and they're sitting here, one on top of the other, but they're existing in different frequencies. So we started talking about this theory in 2009, and it was the only thing that explained everything. Of course, being criminal investigators, we want answers. And we started looking at tradition, the Navajo tradition. And it talks about Navajos coming from starting in a world of darkness. They go up into another world, which is an aquatic world. And then they go up from there into another world with giants and animals. From there, they see they talk about a hole in the sky, and they say reeds, but you know, in Navajo, it could mean something else. But they put something up there, and they crawled up this thing into the sky. And according to Navajo tradition, they came out in a place called Dineta, which is near the Four Corners region, into this world that they call the Shining World. So we said, you know, it's not a myth. It could have actually happened. Only we don't look at it correctly. We interpret it wrong. So we started interpreting that as possibly meaning that they came through these dimensional gates. Excuse me.
It was Bigfoot.
So, yeah. So we started looking at the possibility that they're describing dimensional gates. And we started seeing the same thing with UFOs, with Bigfoot. And it actually made a lot of sense when it came to hauntings and ghosts. And we also looked at it, and we found out that our Earth, you know, if you look at our Earth, it's a ball, right, in space. And you have the sun over here that's got all this radiation just blasting. Okay, I'm a fly fisherman. I fish all the time, and I tie my own flies. So in a stream, if you have a big rock in the stream and you've got the water coming, it'll flow around the rock. Behind the rock, there'll be dead space. And this is where you want to toss your fly, because that's where the fish are hanging out to ambush, predator ambush, right? So if you think about our Earth, on the opposite side of where the sun is, there's this dead space, almost negative energy there. And we think that energy that's left here, because we're all composed of energy, you know, all the way down to our atomic structure, they still don't know what holds us together. And the military is trying to figure out, is there a way that we can disrupt that and cause our atoms just to fly apart? Of course. So we started looking at that and thinking, well, if there's a vacuum on the other side of the Earth, what time is that? And it turns out that it's usually around 3:30 in the morning when it's opposite.
Okay. So when you were talking, you know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of, the first thing that came to my mind was the witching hour.
Right.
So in folklore, there's this term called the witching hour. So I went and looked it up, and the time of the witching hour is typically between 3 and 4 a.m. I'm looking at this right now on Wikipedia. Check this out. That is so cool. So maybe that's what they're referring to, like scientifically.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. So why are here's the theory about, let me ask you this real quick, and I could be far out here, but it seems like there's a lot of missing people that happen in national parks. And it seems like the is it bad to use the term reservation? Is that like to say it's a reservation, it's much nicer than a reservation. I mean, it's beautiful land that, but
most tribes refer to themselves as nations.
Okay.
We are literally a country inside a country that's sovereign.
Yeah, but the Fed, you know what? I went to this event one time called Contact in the Desert, which I felt like it was witness protection, or no, it was Witness in the Desert. Contact in the Desert's awesome. I went to a thing called Witness in the Desert once because I got invited there, and I felt like it was witness protection program in the desert, because when we got there, there was some fighting going on amongst the tribal people and the council, and the SWAT team showed up, and the Fed showed up, and everybody showed up, and we still don't know why they showed up. And I was like, well, if it's independent land, then how come the federal government can just come in whenever they want? That doesn't seem very sovereign to me, but that's just kind of what was going through my mind at the time. Is it?
Well, it gets a little complicated, but there's the federal government has federal officers, and Bureau of Indian Affairs has their own police force that's under the federal jurisdiction. Tribal police forces, some of them are tribal, some of them are SLEC, Special Law Enforcement Commission by the feds, and some of them are state certified. So it just depends on where you go. And then there's something called reciprocity, where you have cross-commissioning that occurs between counties and tribes. I used to be commissioned with Navajo County and with Coconino County because those are the areas that I worked in. So if something happened and there was an Anglo out here that broke the law, I could arrest them. But it was just, I'd have to drive them into Flagstaff, which is 50 miles away, and book them. And then, but then again, if I arrested somebody here and I transferred them either to Tuba City or Window Rock, it was a 2-hour drive one way to 125 miles to get them to the jail.
That's a long drive to take somebody to the jail, but man, I'll bet if they upset you, you were more than happy to drive them a couple of hours to take them there. I think it's just that you see some of these incredible pieces of history that are either suppressed or they're hidden, and there's a lot of like cultural conflict and stuff like that. And what I've realized is, because I've got so many friends from different nations and different places, it's like most of us are really looking for the truth, and we want to be able to take care of our family and have a good quality life. And I think that there's a lot of titles, a lot of verbiage that makes people kind of think differently, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So we started. So we started looking at all these things, and we made a determination that a lot of this was interconnected. And so we started talking about this back when we were doing our presentations all the way back in 2011. And what I find interesting is that now you turn on the TV, you hear a lot about stargates and portals and things like that. We actually took it one step further. You're familiar with Nikola Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, the inventor of the radio, the inventor of the alternating current, and a bunch of people stole his thunder and said that they invented it instead. But he had a theory called the 369 theory. And this theory, he said that 3, 6, and 9 were magical numbers. And these magical numbers are so important that if you could ever figure out how they worked, you could do anything. He was so enamored with this that he would go to work in a building and he'd walk around the block 3 times before he entered the building. His room had to be divisible by either 3, 6, or 9, the room number. So he was very concerned about this kind of stuff, and he gave each number an attribute. First, he said 3. If you take 0, 1, and 2, they equal 3. 6 is a multiple of 3. 9 is the first prime number. So he started with that, and he attributed 3 to energy, 6 to frequency, and 9 to vibration. So a lot of times we have energy, we have frequency, but the vibration to me is the amplitude of that frequency. It's a little bit different, just like when you're tuning up a guitar string, it has a different pitch. So if you were able to figure out those 3 things, you might be able to open up a portal. And, we don't know these portals. We don't know how they work. I can tell you that 10 years ago, the Large Hadron Collider did an experiment where they tried to open a dimensional gate and send a message through, which I think is a real bad idea, because in the military, they'll tell you never draw fire on your own position. So that could be pretty good. So anyway, I
remember that guy that did, like, one of the people that was a part of that had an equation. They were playing the song "'Cause I'm Happy" in the CERN, and it was 2014. And they had a sign on that said "I'm happy," and they had this weird equation on there, and that made a lot of people wonder if they did something with the timelines. And that's probably the message that you're talking about that they sent.
Right. Wow. So we know that they're interested. When Skinwalker Ranch was being investigated by the NIDS program and by ATIP with government money, there were 30 different things that they were tasked with finding out about. Some of them were faster than light travel. Some of them were stargates and how they operate. There were just a whole range of things that they were looking at. And so that tells me that the military was definitely interested. When we spoke, me and Stan will now give a shout out to the military people that are there in the audience, because we've had people show up that are obviously military, and they'll have clipboards and they'll sit in the back of the room and take notes, and then they'll leave before the end of the presentation. And so now we give them a shout out, because we tell them Indian tribes have a deep distrust of the military to start with, and that the government has never been good to Indian tribes. Out of 6,000 treaties that were made since 1492, not one of them was ever kept. So, what a historical significance there. So anyway,
that's terrible. I had no idea. I mean, I know that they, like, a lot of the nations will be next to uranium fields or coal mines, and they'll extract all the coal and uranium and keep it for the federal government. And then, like, basically there's dialysis programs all over the place, and people are getting, it's ridiculous. I'm sorry, I'm ranting, but yes, they love you so much that they, like, here you go. Or crazy. 4,000 treaties broken, though. I had no idea. That kind of puts it in perspective.
Yeah, 6,000.
Whoa,
6,000 treaties, and that was just in the United States. We're not even including the 500 plus tribes and First Nations up in Canada.
That's ridiculous. We could do a whole other podcast on that.
Oh yeah. So we survived a systematic genocide, and we're still here. Navajo Nation today is the largest Indian tribe. We have probably about 480,000 tribal members that are living on the Navajo Nation right now, and untold numbers in other places like Los Angeles and Phoenix, and all the cities have them. So the Navajos are all over the place. But we started looking at all these aspects of this idea of portals, and it's the only one that fits. No matter how far we've gone, no matter what new theories came up, it just seems like it's the only one that stayed so far. And now when you watch TV, you see the idea of portals all over the place. In fact, David Pilates is now talking about that very thing. He's got a new film out, so I'm gonna promote it here. It's called Missing 411: The UFO Connection, and we were invited. Both me and Stan were invited to attend the premiere, and I got interviewed on stage with him. So that's on YouTube also. And he talks about this idea that UFOs and portals and everything else. So we're right there on the same page.
Well, that makes so much more sense, and it does describe a lot of the how Bigfoot just disappears and how these craft appear and disappear. So let's talk about that then. If we were to go back to some of the experiences that you've had, you had the first one in '84 that really just blew your mind, and so in Dulce, I'm in the Four Corners area. I'm just 30 minutes from the Archuleta Mesa, and I'll tell you what, I'm not even going to mess around out there anymore, because I used to go out there and explore a lot, and I met a lot of people out there that were telling me their personal stories. And then I had a dream the day after I met Hickory Apache guy that was telling me about the stuff out there. I had a dream that was like, man, it still gave me goosebumps. So let's just put it this way. I have had no interest to go out there since I've had this dream. But there's one gal, the reason I'm bringing this up, there's one gal that told me that she, during the daytime, that lives out there. And she's like, she's not a conspiracy theorist. She's not even into UFOs. And she just, during the daytime, she saw a rod-shaped UFO fly into the mesa during the daytime. Right. And it sounds like what you're talking about. So I would think that if the military, the reason I brought up the Navajo Nation and what is termed reservations is it seems like there's a lot more activity at these locations. And so does the government, or are there factions that created the government that know about this, so they specifically pick these places that would be considered a specific nation or a reservation, so that they could kind of keep tabs or keep this information suppressed about these portals and these multi-dimensional gateways, possibly?
Well, I think those gateways are pretty much all over the place.
Okay.
If you look at Phoenix area, you have a mountain range there called the Estrellas. And the Estrella Mountains separate Gila River, from their reservation there. Gila River, they named it Estrella. Estrella in their language literally translates to Stargate. And they say that they see UFOs there all the time. The difference really is that on Navajo land and on a lot of other reservations, we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the street lights. We don't have the cities that are lighting up everything. So you go out in your front door and you look up and you're going to see a huge starscape up there on a crystal clear night with no smog, no light pollution, none of that. And they're more aware because they live out there, so they see this stuff all the time. I had a young girl that talked to me, and she went to visit her grandmother. And she says her grandmother's sitting on a dirt floor in the hogan weaving. The door to the hogan is open. And she sees what she describes as a 6 or 7 foot disc that's hovering outside the door, silver in color. And she gets really excited. I mean, this is a 20-year-old girl. And she says, Grandma, look outside, And the grandmother didn't even look up. You could see the shadow coming in from where the light was coming in from the door. And the grandmother just says, Oh yeah, they're always here, and just kept on weaving, like it was no big deal. This happens all the time. For Navajos, it's kind of baked into the culture that they had visitations by star people. The Yebiche dancers are depictions of gods that have come to them, and yet if you go online and look up Skinwalker, you will see a picture of a Yebiche dancer on there. Which is, I've told people, I says, this is like putting a picture up of the Pope and saying that this is Satan incarnate. Yeah.
Maybe you should use a different term for that. I'm sorry I had to say it. I'm so sorry. I know what you mean. No, I know what you mean. Please continue. It's like I know what you mean. Right. I get it. So
yeah.
Why is that? Why just ignorance? Do you think it's ignorance?
It's some of it is ignorance, and for some people, they look scary. The Yebiche dancers are actually really interesting because there's usually 10 or 12 of them, and they during the wintertime they go out and they hold these dances and they go through the community knocking on business doors and asking for donations to feed people. And the last one is always considered the clown. And the clown represents the five-fingered people, which is you and me. So, and he's called the clown because he doesn't listen to the advice the gods give him on how to live right. He does the exact opposite. He starts fights. He does the wrong things. He doesn't do what society needs him to do. He's just a contrary, a complete opposite. And so when they look at him, they say he's a clown. And that tells you a lot about our human nature, that, that the gods are right there telling him how to act and he can't do it. So, that's just like us. We know how to act. We don't want to do it. We don't want to act right. So, we have these dancers, and they represent the gods that have come to us. The Hopis have the same thing. Kachinas represent their gods that have come for different reasons, and they're different gods that each have different types of attributes. And the Kachinas, were the dolls that are made are actually made for children. They're made so that the children can recognize who that god is and what they represent. So they're usually given to children so that they can start to recognize all these different deities that are recognized in their tribe.
It's a great way to pass on stories. And so let me ask this then. I've probably been, I've been to so many different petroglyph sites, and that's one of the things I'm really passionate about is finding these petroglyph sites and decoding a lot of these stories. And one of the theories that we've got about certain petroglyphs is there was a point in time where people around the world were seeing the same events in the heavens. And so they were etching them in stone. And then these events got deified into certain gods and goddesses and kachinas, etc. But the reason I'm bringing this up is there's a lot of these petroglyph sites I've been to that show 6 fingers and then 5 fingers. So are the
3 fingers?
Yeah. So I don't know what the 3 fingers means. So can you tell us more? Like, are the 6 fingers, is that Bigfoot, or is that the people before us, or is that the gods?
Those are depictions of gods that you're seeing. And what's interesting is, and you came to the right place because archaeology was my forte. I've seen literally thousands of petroglyph panels, and what they represent is they are to be viewed in their entirety. They will tell you where good hunting areas are. They'll give you maps of an area. Sometimes the rock itself becomes a relief of what they're trying to describe. They'll show you where water can be had and where to go and whether you need to go down or up. They'll show you what kind of game animals there are. And they've just recently discovered that there are markings on there that tell you what season those animals are good to get, because a lot of them migrate. So they'll tell you what seasons to be there. Some of them are clan markings that tell you which groups came through. And so they put their stamp on there. Other groups may come through and obliterate marks to say this is our territory, it's not your territory. So that kind of stuff goes on too. Some are historical representations. It might show a battle. It might show, typically, if you see a figure that's upside down, it means death or somebody's died. I've seen one panel in particular where there's a man with a stick figure with a distended stomach in the middle. And he's got genitalia hanging down. He's got six fingers on one hand and 4 fingers on the other, and six toes on one foot and 4 toes on the other. The interesting thing is right in that same area, there's 98 open uranium tailings pits. And so what if these guys were digging in that area or using this pretty yellow stone to make their homes with? And they were seeing deformities due to genetic DNA damage. And so they were recording this, on the rocks. They would have been considered holy people that they were gifted in some way to be born this way, but they were recorded nonetheless. And being in such close proximity to uranium mines tells me that they were seeing deformities in their own culture.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, I'm folks, just so you know, like I'm in the background here, like nodding my head going, wow, this is, you can't see me doing that. But Jonathan can. And it's interesting because I read a text once from Aleister Crowley of all people, where he wrote about Atlantis, and he talked about the people of Atlantis and how they were born with deformities, and like those that were born with deformities were the ones that were actually looked up more to. So if you were born with a giant hand or something that would be looked at now as, not desirable, back then they would look up to that type of thing. And I wonder if there's a connection with what you're talking about, actually. And the uranium stuff makes sense. So if you're living by an area where there's tons of radiation, then yeah, you could be absolutely deformed from that uranium. I mean, I've taken Geiger counters out there before in the Badlands, and it's spiked up 100% just like that in certain areas. That's really amazing. I'm so fascinated with these archaeological sites, but one thing that I'm very interested in is there's one in particular where there's what's called the Squatter Man, where there's guys like this, and you'll see that guy around, like you'll see him in Egypt, you'll see him in Europe, you'll see him around the world. And so that's why I've wondered if there's certain petroglyphs that the ancients saw things that were taking place in the heavens, so they would write it in stone, and that's why people in Egypt would see the same thing and they would glorify it. Do you think? I think there's a global culture at one point. I think the natives were trading. There
is, and there's a lot of the symbolism that goes all around the world. The one that we've been interested in is this the spiral that you see, and it's worldwide. I've reinterpreted those as describing portals. But what they tell me, the original description of that was that it was a sign of migration. And I told them, I says, well, I reinterpreted it because even the Navajos migrated from different worlds to this world. And that was a migration, but they used portals. And in a lot of these places, portals could very well possibly exist because of all the interesting things that are going around on that landscape.
The military is going to be a lot more interested in certain areas that have those types of characteristics. So that would make sense to be close to these portals or to have some type of military presence or make it an off limits area also. And the natives they probably knew, like we go back tens of thousands of years, they were probably given this knowledge. Okay, that's an area where it's a portal. That's an area that's considered a vortex. So let's build our sacred sites around here. And then the Catholic Church comes around, the Vatican comes around and is like, no, we will put our church here over your temple. Do you think that there's some truth to that?
Well, the Spanish conquistadors, when they came, that's what they did with the pueblos. Every place there was a grand kiva, they built the church right over the top of it. And what they're saying symbolically is that our church is taking the place of your church. The only thing is that they actually whipped and beat people and executed them for not becoming Catholics. And that's how the Pueblo revolt took place. And they didn't come back for 80 years. So, there's a lot of interesting history that goes along with it. But yeah, we started looking at all these things and we started saying, okay, here's the only theory that fits, that we haven't seen anything change our minds yet. We're open to that. Give me a theory that works and I'll be happy. But we started talking about these type of things. We would talk about all these different paranormal events. Prior to us getting involved in this, if you went to a UFO conference, you wouldn't talk about nothing but UFOs. Bigfoot was not allowed. Hauntings were not allowed. Vice versa. If the conference was about Bigfoot, you didn't talk about UFOs. So now we're seeing that the mix is there, that it describes everything. And we're pretty happy with that. And we'd like to think that we were some of the first to start talking about this subject matter like we did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What else have you seen, Jonathan, that would be just, something that might make somebody's skin crawl or make somebody's hair stand up in places they didn't know they had hair?
We investigated cases and let me tell you a real quick story about how this all started. In the year 2000, a couple of our rookie rangers were sent to take a report of a Bigfoot case. Bigfoot had stepped over corral. Grandma and Grandpa saw it, tucked a sheep under its arm, and stepped back over and walked off with it. In Navajo culture, you're told that Bigfoot has always been here, that he's here. Just accept it and leave it alone. But Grandma and Grandpa were upset. So 2 rangers went up there. Both of them are rookies. Both of them, if you knew these guys, they're jokers. They're laughing little private jokes all the time. They're just, having a good time. And so they're giggling and laughing amongst themselves. And Grandma took exception to this and, basically called our chief ranger and chewed him out. And in Navajo culture, for people that are your elders, you sit up and take notice. So he called everyone into the department and he says, from now on, you're going to investigate these cases professionally and thoroughly, and you're going to write reports. And then he turned to me and Stan and says, and you guys are going to receive all the major cases involving all these paranormal stuff. And me and Stan looked at each other and we said, oh man, we're going to be the X-Files. But what's interesting is I like to say we were voluntold. We didn't raise our hands. We didn't say we want to do this. We had a very unique place we were coming from. Stan was raised in Oklahoma, in Tahlequah. I was raised in Los Angeles. So we didn't have the deep traditional background that a lot of Navajos have that say, you shouldn't have anything to do with these. And we got involved in these cases. and just started investigating just like you do any other criminal case. And that's the whole thing about our investigations is we looked at evidence collection, we looked at statements and verifying witnesses and vetting them, everything that would be necessary to take a case to federal court. And so that's how we conducted our cases. We didn't go in with an idea of, oh, this is a UFO case. We went in with an idea that this case could be anything. Let's find out. Let's look at the evidence first. Let's see if the statements match up to what the evidence shows us, and document as fully as we can and collect any evidence as we can. And at the end, let the chips fall where they will, which is really opposed to a lot of how people investigate stuff. You don't go into an accident scene and say, tell me what happened and base everything off of that. You look at the skid marks, you look at the critical scuffs, you look at the contact damage, the induced damage, and you can tell I was a technical accident investigator. And once you determine what happened based on the evidence on the roadway, then you go back and see if your witness statements fit with what you see on the road. So that's how we investigated them, and we got rather good at it. Maybe anywhere from 70 to 100 cases every year for 11 years.
And these cases were a combination of UFOs, Bigfoot, unexplained type stuff.
Yeah, hauntings and the legendary Navajo Skinwalker. We did some of those cases too.
So what do you think about the Skinwalker? My friend Christopher O'Brien actually, he's written quite a bit of stuff on the paranormal, and he thinks he saw a Skinwalker go past his house like this one night. You could see it in the window. He pissed somebody off that he shouldn't have, I guess. And he said he called the Skinwalker, went right by his window, just like this one. But this window is on the second story. So it's kind of weird.
They are very dangerous. We protect ourselves. We have people that pray for us, pray over us. We smudge ourselves. And I need to say this as a kind of a public service announcement. Don't pick up smudging because you see other people do it. It doesn't do you any good just to copy it and smudge yourself. Plus, you're subsuming somebody else's culture. Go into your own culture, find out what they used to ward off evil, and make it your own with your own intent. So you don't need to copy what Native Americans do. They do it because that's how we've been taught for millennia. And it works for us. So that's why we continue to do it, along with bitter medicine and lightning struck tree medicine and things like that. But if you do this, and the evidence is out there. You go to any crystal shop now, you'll see sage, you'll see cedar, you'll see sweetgrass. And but my recommendation is find out what your own culture did and then make it your own. And it's much more powerful that way. So we protect ourselves. And both me and Stan have been attacked in the past. We understand that even just speaking about this subject causes attention to be drawn to us by these things. We've been stalked by them. We've seen them on occasion. And I'll tell film crews that come out here that we're not looking for them. In the case of one, we had one of these things show up. And it was quite alarming, and we had to call it and say, that's it. We're not going any further with this because now we know that there's something having to do with skinwalkers. We have had a couple of people that were poisoned by them almost die. So
how did they get poisoned by skinwalkers?
Well, in one case, we actually And this one, you can read about it yourself. Good friend of ours named Haas Lohr. And Haas was a teacher up in Pinon. And he sees this mangy dog. He's Anglo, by the way. A mangy dog come up. He's married to a Navajo. Comes up to his driveway, and the fur's falling out. It looks like it has mange. It's covered with dust. He gets a 2x4, walks up to it, and hits it as hard as he can. He says that he sees dust fly up off of this thing, and it falls over because he just poleaxed it in the head, and it immediately its bladder released, and it just peed all over the place. So he goes in, of course, just like any guy, look what I did, tells his wife, and she says, show me. So they went back outside. The dog was gone. Shortly after that, the hospital could not determine what was wrong with him. And he got sicker and sicker and sicker. By his own statement, he says that he was crapping out one side and vomiting out the other, laying in a pool of sweat. His wife and his neighbor literally picked him up with their son and dragged him to the vehicle, put him in the vehicle, and took him almost 100 miles to see a medicine man. When they got to the medicine man told them to all come into the hogan. The little boy stayed outside, would not come into the hogan. The medicine man looked at him and he says, tell me what happened. Now you would have been dead. So he did a ceremony for him. He gave him something really bitter to drink that made him just puke his guts out even more. And he says the next day he was starting to feel better. They asked the little boy why he didn't go into the hogan. And the little boy said, because there was a dark man, a shadow standing next to you guys, and he was scary, so I didn't want to go in there. So out of the mouths of babes, right?
Yeah.
He was able to perceive something that we could not see. And so he got better. It took him a long time. But another one we had got sick for over a year and a half, almost died, and took him a year and a half to get over it. And the doctors couldn't determine what was going on with him either. So the Skinwalker is known to carry poison with them.
And are the stories true about how a Skinwalker becomes a Skinwalker?
Yeah, they are. You have to literally sacrifice somebody that you love dearly in your own family. Could be a child. It could be somebody that you just love dearly, and they're killed for you to gain this knowledge, which is not a real nice initiation. And then you're trained.
Are you trained by like spirits, or are you trained by people?
No, you're trained by people.
Oh, it's like
it's like a cult group, but it's so you go all the way back to the 1860s, and you find out that there was such a preponderance of them that 30 of them were rounded up on the reservation one year and killed. Back in 1977, a man opened up the door to his hogan, and there's two men standing there, and one of them put an axe in his head. And so the FBI came out and arrested these two guys, and they took them to trial in Albuquerque. And the guy said, we were sent by the community to go kill a Skinwalker. And he had been identified, so we went over there and killed him. And if it wasn't us, it would have been two other guys. It didn't matter. We did what we were told to do. And they were actually acquitted. homicide. So, and that's somewhere in the court dockets, but it is an existing case. Navajo Nation courts too have had many cases. It's still illegal on the Navajo Nation to practice witchcraft, and we're talking about Skinwalker stuff, not the good witch, the white witches and the black witches and that kind of stuff. The Wiccan stuff. We're talking about this stuff that's really evil. They're known to have sex with dead bodies. They're known to dig up the dead and take their jewelry, and sell it in border towns. So people that suddenly become rich out here, there's always some kind of suspicion of where they got their money. That could be a reason. There are medicine men that are taught these things. My grandfather was taught to be a medicine man and instead became a Christian minister. And he told me that as a medicine man learning this stuff, you're taught everything, because you have to know how the curse was constructed in order to do something about it. Just like a doctor today would have to know how a virus works in order to counteract it. So, they said it's up to you to have a sense of decorum in, doing the right thing and not using it for an evil purpose. I have personally run into some of these medicine men that do, there you go, I saw the light, that will create a curse. And then they'll go and say, hey, here I am to fix it. And, I find that really interesting too. So yeah, there's a lot that goes on, but it's deeply rooted in the culture. They are not avatars. They are not spiritual or spirits. They're flesh and blood. They can be killed. I had a grandpa that killed one time, shot him with a rifle in a coyote farm. We had another one that was shot with a family that came home and saw a coyote trying to get in the sheep corral. They shot it in the flank. It dragged itself into the bushes. They grabbed the hind leg of the coyote and dragged it out to finish it off. And as they were dragging it, it turned into a human leg in their hand. The police were called. They looked at it and they said, we want nothing to do with this. The ambulance was called. They took it into the hospital. Navajo crew, all they did was strap it to the gurney and took it in. When they got to the hospital, the Anglo doctors chased all the Navajo staff out of the ER and proceeded to save this guy. So, and we've talked to two people that were witness to that and can verify that story, besides the couple that shot it.
And you said that you've actually been stalked before, so you've seen them before too.
Oh yeah.
What did they look like when you saw them?
They can take the form of a lot of different stuff. They can be different animals. If they have the skin of an animal, they can change into that animal. We think they use DNA to do that, to affect that change. And they're able to change at the molecular level. If they get something of yours, they can change into somebody that looks like you. So Navajo kids from a very early age are taught you don't leave your fingernail clippings laying around. You don't leave your hair laying around. You don't leave sweaty clothes. If you urinate outside, you cover it up, things like that. You're very aware of things that belong to you, that they don't just get left out. So, we do know this, but we've looked at it and we said, they carry the skin of the animal that they want to change into. So we know that they have skins. We've heard of one that must have picked up kangaroo hide somewhere, because he was actually a half kangaroo on the bottom and a human on the top. They can change into owls, into ravens. And we think that this is why the military is so interested. What if the military was able to affect this change on a soldier and send him behind the lines? Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
That'd give you a bit of an advantage. Hey, it's just a cute little bunny. Yeah, with a machine gun. Oh my gosh, man. It's, all of a sudden, Bugs Bunny just had a couple AKs. I don't know what happened. Okay, so I know we got to wrap this up, but I got to say, I could talk to you for hours, and this is absolutely one of the most incredible interviews that I've done. It's way above what I expected, and I was expecting an awesome interview. I'm so fascinated with the ancient cultures and the native traditions. This has been a real honor, and I'm super looking forward to hearing you speak at Contact in the Desert. So luckily I've got a press pass, so I'm going to be there and I'm going to be promoting it and I'm going to get behind the scenes. And so when are you speaking out there? Is it the 2nd of June, or what day is it? Do you know?
I don't even remember. They did send me the schedule, but both me and Stan will be there. And we'll also be at the, what do they call that? The Roswell incident, which is the newspaper one. So we'll be there for that. And I'll be speaking at the Boreal Bigfoot Conference in Fairbanks, Alaska.
Great. Well, I mean, sounds like a really fun opportunity, and Alaska's great. I know my folks take cruises there every year. If I didn't have to fly, I'd be there. But it was such an honor to speak with you. And so you've got your own YouTube channel?
No. And this is the thing. We've got a lot of stuff on YouTube. If you look up Jonathan Dover, or if you look up Paranormal Rangers or Navajo Rangers, you'll find some of our stuff. We do not have any social media at this time, although we're considering it. As Stan's getting ready to retire, as law enforcement officers, you don't put yourself out there for anybody to abuse you. And social media is a great place to get abused. So I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on anything. And most people find out about us through word of mouth, but that may change in the near future.
Boom. That's what I'm talking about. What an interview, right? Jonathan Dover, Navajo Ranger, Unsealed Files of Skinwalkers, Bigfoot, high paranormal, high strangeness, bizarre things happen at the reservation. And you know who else is Navajo in the chat right now? Shondell. Hey, brother. How the heck are you? Good to see you. I got some awesome people in the chat. Charlie Bad Hands, Shondell, Amanda, Martian Stealth Jedi. Who else we got in here? Angela, Vigo, Digger Dog. Interesting name. Thrive Mind. Yeah, so you heard about the EQ, the 8.8 that just hit off the coast of Russia. Well, I just looked, and there are warnings and advisories in Alaska, Hawaii, mainly Hawaii. There are a ton of warnings out there. So when we finish this up, I'm going to go back and do another live stream. Hopefully you can join us, and just check back in about 10 minutes, because we've got several webcams pulled up. We've got different webcams pulled up live in Hawaii right now, as well as Alaska. So we're going to take a look at that. And hopefully it's a nothing burger, but I've already read reports on the internet about buildings floating away in Russia, but that could be nonsense, because, I haven't verified that yet. So take that very lightly, but we'll keep you updated, and be excellent to each other. Check us out over on Rumble. Also, we're doing live streams on Rumble. We get into more of the political stuff there on Rumble, as well as Patreon, exclusive interviews on Patreon. Be a Patreon, and you will be rewarded with incredible content. Okay, be the change you want to see. Nanny, nanny.